Welcome back to Hand Me Down Recipes, everyone. This is Kathy, and today we have Tiffany from Well Fed Baker with us. How are you today, Tiffany?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am so good. It is middle of August, and it's a beautiful sunny day here in Northwest Montana, and you are in North Carolina. Is that right? Do I have that right?
That's right. Yes, I bet it's a lot warmer here than it is in Montana.
Yeah, you're definitely more humid. We don't get humid. North Carolina is a long time ago now, more than 10 years ago. I was in Asheville, and I flew into Raleigh and drove because I live where I live. It just wasn't easy to get to Asheville any other way. And I just fell in love with North Carolina. I fell in love with it. If I ever left Montana, it would be to go to North Carolina, I think.
Well, I live in
Such a
Asheville,
beautiful spot.
actually. It's such a nice area.
Oh gosh. I loved it there so much. I still think about it all the time, and I think about all the food I ate there all the time too. But
Uh,
it was just so great. And I have lived well north of the Mason-Dixon line my entire life. I grew up in Pennsylvania. And so like the food is just very different, and I hadn't really ever eaten good grits if ever in my life.
right?
And so it's just wonderful. Well, today we are going to actually talk about your grandfather's butter rolls. Is that right?
Yes.
Grandfather's?
Yes.
Okay.
He's my great
And
grandfather, actually.
great grandfather. Okay, even
Great
better.
grandfather,
And
yes.
we're going to talk more about the recipe, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the recipe and the history of it in your family, please?
Sure. So my great grandfather owned a bakery in Cascade, Idaho from around 1930 or like the early 90s until the mid 1970s. And Cascade's a really small town, but a lot of people come through there for a vacation, I think, because of its location. But he was very well known there for his butter rolls, which is the recipe that we're talking about. He made other things too, bread and cakes and candies, a basic bakery selection, but this is the thing that he was most well known for from his customers. People would come from out of town and say that their friends told them that they had to try these rolls while they were there. And even after he died, my great aunt still lived there, and people would ask her for 20 years after to bring them to like bake sales and
For sure.
cookouts and things like that. So they're very well known in that area. And my grandma grew up working in his bakery. And so she always made the rolls for us when I was young. We've always eaten them. We've had them for special occasions, holidays, just weekend breakfast, whatever, they're always around. So
That is really wonderful. And so, did your grandma teach you how to make them then?
I started helping her make them when I was really young. I have a picture actually on my website of me when I'm probably like 2 or 3 years old, helping her make them at her kitchen table. But I remember making them all growing up. She would make huge batches, like enough to cover her entire dining room table, because she would bag them up and give them away to people and keep them in the freezer for so she could pull them out whenever. So when I was there at her house, I would sit there with her at the table and roll them up and prep the dough and, help her with that. So everyone in my family's kind of been trained to make them.
Is that true? Everyone learns, and that's awesome.
Some people don't make them now, or like they don't really have a lot of skill with baking, but they've all done the work, at least some. A few people have picked up kind of the mantle and are going for it, and they make them for the family occasions now. So
That's great.
yeah.
And so we're gonna talk about the actual recipe itself, but do you guys like? It sounds like your grandma makes huge batches, so she probably eats them more or serves them kind of frequently. It's not just a special occasion kind of treat, or how do you guys serve them?
Definitely at occasions like Christmas or Thanksgiving, anytime when there would be a lot of people over for a get together, we would have them. If you were just visiting her for like the weekend or something, you could pull out some from the freezer and warm them up and eat them. She always kept the topping, which is like the icing, in the
Mm-hmm.
refrigerator, so you could use it anytime. We have kind of branched out over the years to putting the topping on other things like on waffles, on toast, on cookies, and made different toppings to go on the rolls. Like we've used apple pie filling on there, we've used chocolate frosting, just
Oh, sure.
mixed it up. But they were always around, not all, holidays and family get-togethers were the main time where they would be served to everyone. But
Sure.
she had them in a freezer most of the time where you could grab some if you wanted.
That's great. And I bet she gave them away a bunch at Christmas time. Like
Yes.
I bet like everybody was like, yeah, that's what she gives at Christmas time. Yeah. Yeah. I make potica, which is a Serbian Slavic nut bread thing, which my grandmother taught me how to make, and it just
Hmm.
was passed down through. And I live in an area where that's not a common thing, different ethnic backgrounds. But when I make it, everybody wants it, and so now I just make tons of it at Christmas time, loaf after loaf after loaf. And so yeah, I know how that goes. So good for grandma for passing on those kinds of things.
Yeah, she would
So
turn this. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say she would
no,
make
go ahead,
bags, of
go ahead.
course,
Sorry.
for the family. I have a big family, so she would make everyone a bag to take home after Christmas. But then she would also use the same dough to make like a fruit bread and like cinnamon twist bread, and she would give those away too. So, yeah.
It is a really good yeasted dough recipe. So we'll link the recipe, of course, for everyone to go and check it out. But it is just kind of a very rich. I mean, it's a basic bread dough. It's not
Hmm.
super like there's nothing super fancy, which is always the best food in my
Right.
opinion, right? It's just but it has eggs in it and plenty of butter and sugar. There's actually not that much sugar though
Hmm.
in the actual bread dough. So, but it's a really rich, beautiful dough and it comes together so nicely. And if you are new to baking bread, it might not be the very first thing you want to make. You might want to get a little,
Right.
maybe a little bit of bread baking experience under your belt to kind of understand how kneading it. But it's not that difficult. I think a beginner could, if you've made at least one loaf of other bread, I feel like you could make these.
Yeah.
Yes, do you think?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think your first time they might not be perfect, but they're still going to be edible for sure.
right.
But the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it.
That's right, right. Like I mean, and you don't have to worry about doing the fancy twists and braids and things like that
Right.
if you don't want to. Like that those all take skill and even sometimes now, like you have to like want to do that and not be in a hurry because if you're in a hurry, they're never going to turn out. So, it's
Yeah.
okay to just do that. One of the things cuz you had sent me before we talked, you had sent me a copy of a cookbook that had the recipe in.
Hmm.
And it said in the thing, and I love this, and I can't wait to try this. It said at Christmas time she liked to soak fruit, like dried fruit, like raisins, and I'm assuming
Hmm.
or dried cranberries, in rum, and then put that in the dough. And I think
Yeah.
that would be incredible, and I can't wait to try that.
Well, I tell you, if you do try that, then cut it into slices, toast them, and use the same icing on top of the toast. And it's so good.
My goodness. So you just do it in a bread pan then, and let it rise. Is that
Hmm.
what you're saying? Instead of
Yeah,
oh, I
she
so
would
want
do
to.
it like braided, kind of
Oh, sure. Like
a
a bob,
braided loaf.
kind of.
But yeah, just in a bread pan.
Like a bob, kind of. Wow. That is, yeah, y'all, that's a tip that everybody should know. Because I wouldn't have thought of that, but that would be really good. And now, yeah, we'll have to be doing that when it gets a little cooler and it's not so hot and I don't feel like baking. When it gets to be 90 degrees, I don't want to make bread, but definitely I'm going to do that in the fall and Christmas time. So that'll be great.
Yeah, let me know how you like it.
I will. And it does rise 3 times, which is, not unusual. So it's the kind of recipe that you have to want to make. The hands on time, like any bread, is really small, I think, right? But then you have to let it rise. But you can do other things while it's rising. You don't have to watch it, y'all. So you can just, go about your day, read a book, sit on the porch, do something else while it rises. But it's a good, you're sitting at home kind of project.
Yeah,
You
it's
don't have to worry
something
about
to
cooking
do
anything.
when you have a whole day. I mean, you like you said, you can go out and do other things, but you kind of need to baby be there to check on it during the day. But it does take
Right.
quite a few hours to make, but it's worth it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why you make a big batch and then you put them in the freezer and then you don't have to make them again for a while and you can eat them when you
That's right.
want.
And it tickled me. I don't know why this tickled me so much, but it's so you frost the frosting. It's a butter frosting,
Hmm.
butter and powdered sugar. And is it powdered sugar? Now
It
my
is.
mind has gone blank on this. It is powdered sugar. And then you frost it, and then you put chopped peanuts on top, which was what your great grandfather did. So that's like the traditional
Hmm.
recipe. Yes. Which
Yes.
I don't know why that seemed odd to me. It's not. Peanuts in baked goods is not uncommon by any stretch of the imagination, but for some reason it seemed a little odd, but it's really tasty. If you're allergic to peanuts, obviously don't do that.
Yeah, you could use a different nut or not do the nuts at all. Yeah, so my aunt actually told me that the nuts on top came about because he liked to like sell them to go and they were wrapped in plastic wrap and the nuts kept the
Oh.
frosting from sticking to the plastic. So he added those. I don't think they were originally there and he added them later when he started wrapping them up. but we always make them with the nuts on top, and it does go really well. It kind of balances the sweetness a little bit to have the peanuts there.
Right. That's really that's so clever. You know, necessity is always the mother of invention, right? Like
Right?
that is a really smart idea. Put the nuts on there and the plastic wrap won't stick. It's so smart, but it's interesting. So when you do it, so when I did it, I put the frosting on and then I just kind of had like a plate with the top peanuts and I just kind of put it down. Is that how you do it or how do you
Yep.
just sprinkle it over the top?
No,
Okay.
we like stick the roll upside down into the peanuts so they stick to the frosting. Yep.
Yep. That's what I did and I figured that was probably I mean, I knew it couldn't be incorrect, but I figured I was like, yeah, I don't know how else I would really get it to stick if you just sprinkle it, they're probably just gonna fall off, and that didn't
Yeah.
seem right. But I do think if you're not into peanuts or whatever, you could absolutely use something else. And I did use like a lightly salted, dry
Hmm.
roasted peanut, and that was really good because the recipe just said peanut, and I was like, I don't know what kind to use really, and so I just found what I could find at the grocery store, and it was the lightly and it worked out nice because just that little bit of salt
Yeah.
and the sweet together is of course always pretty tasty. Is that what you
Yeah.
do too, or do you use something different?
No, that's what I use. Just the salted roasted peanuts.
Yum. And you could probably again use anything.
Yeah, I
My
think it
my
would be
dad is
great
very
with like pecans or
oh yeah.
even cashews or walnuts, something like that. Yeah.
Or yeah, you could even use a mix. I'm thinking like now I'm thinking my dad really likes like the old fashioned bridge mix, so like the
Hmm.
chocolate with the raisins and the different kind of nuts. And I was like, you could probably just use a whole bunch of nuts if you really wanted to. Just
Yeah.
grab one of those little like cocktail mixes and mix it up and it would be fine. So but you do let the bread dough rise and then you coat it with butter. Like you roll it
Yes.
out and coat it with butter. Just very much like if anyone has ever made a cinnamon roll or seen a cinnamon roll made, it's very similar, and then you fold it in half, and then the recipe said to cut in strips and roll like a snail,
Hmm.
which I was like, roll like a snail. At first, I had a hard time with, but I did figure it out, and I did kind of do almost garlic knots when I did it, just because
Yeah.
that's felt easier to me for some reason. But you could do anything. You could make them as fancy as you wanted, and they would be really lovely. And you could also, I think, make them as big or small as you wanted.
Yes. So they normally are probably like at my grandfather's bakery, they were pretty large. Like they were
Oh,
probably
sure.
like that big. But my grandma over the years, it felt like they got smaller and smaller until they were like mini ones, like that big. And I think maybe because we were eating so many of them, because I do have a very large family. Like my grandma had 6 children, and then everyone's married with more kids, grandkids, great grandkids. So when we had get-togethers, there would be like 25 people or
Oh
30
yeah.
people there all eating these rolls. So I think that's why they got so tiny, was to feed more people. But yeah, they normally were pretty big, like at least the size of your palm.
Oh yeah. So big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, you
That's
could make them
interesting.
as big as you want. You might just have to increase the cooking time to make sure they're done in the middle because it is pretty
Sure.
dense.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So of course, if you make them smaller, change cooking time, make them bigger.
Right.
Just watch. Cook longer, which makes a lot of sense and so good. They are really so tasty. I can't even begin to explain. And so one of the things I do, and I'm a little tempted. I'm not sure that I'll try this, but I'm a little tempted. I have a large garden and I grow a lot of herbs and stuff, and I make compound butters with some of the sweeter herbs like lemon balm or mint. And then I
Mm-hmm.
often use that to make cookies and stuff in the winter. But I'm very tempted to try like the lemon balm compound butter on the rolls because I think
Oh,
that would be really good.
that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know, but it might not work so great either because you never quite know how the herbs might all just fall out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Be on the bottom of the pan.
Right.
So when it cooks, so we would have to see.
Oh,
But
you mean
I always
you were thinking about doing it where you spread the butter on there and you were going to put it inside
yeah.
the rolls. I see. Yeah, I wonder how that would work because I think if you tried to I thought at one point of doing it like a cinnamon roll, like you said, and putting cinnamon
Mhm.
sugar in there, but I think it might make a mess because of how they're twisted up, like it might just leak out. I don't know how it would work with compound butter, but maybe you should try it. You
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the kind of person that's like, what's the worst that can happen?
Right?
It doesn't turn out. It probably won't be like inedible. It just won't turn out exactly how I'm. And
Yeah,
as a food
exactly.
blogger, there's plenty of times. There has to be plenty of times where you try something and the vision for it completely different than how it turns out.
Yes,
Right?
definitely, definitely. I'm like you, I get inspired by things and I'm like, I wonder if I try this. And then sometimes you go, well, that was a complete fail, right? Other
Yeah,
times you're pleasantly surprised.
that's right. That's right. And I will say, I mean, of course it happens, but it doesn't happen terribly often that something is completely inedible, right? Like that
Right.
you can't, that we don't eat it. It does happen now and then, but it's more rare. It's the thing that happens more often than not. Is just that it didn't turn out quite like I had intended. And my husband, bless his heart, is always like, I don't know, it's mine. But you didn't see the vision I had, right? So, okay. And we were saying that your grandmother freezes them, and I was telling Tiffany before we got started that I froze them, and I made just a half a batch because we're just a household of two, so it would have been too much.
Yeah.
But even a half batch still makes quite a few, and you're not probably going to be able to eat them up. So we froze them, and we froze them with the frosting and the peanuts on them, and they were
Oh,
amazing. Now you said your grandma doesn't freeze them with the frosting on it.
no, just the rolls on their own, and then we would reheat them in the toaster oven, like 350 for about 10 minutes or something. And
Mm-hmm.
they were basically tasted like they were freshly baked then when you pulled them out, and then do that frosting on there and the nuts. But I can see how if you didn't want to keep the frosting around or you didn't want to have to make more freezing them with it on there. I've never tried it that way. So do you heat them up, like microwave it or something after, or you just let them
No,
thaw
just
out?
let him thaw out at room temperature. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So like my husband, my husband and I, we walk on the treadmill in the mornings, and he would often pull one out before he got on the treadmill, and so he'd get on the treadmill and walk, and then like take a shower and do his thing, and then it'd be thaw enough to have with a cup of coffee, and he probably dunked it a little bit too, but so it
Yeah.
was thaw enough. It might not have been completely thaw, like would I have served it to somebody like that out? Probably not. But for us, it was fine. But I do love the idea of freezing it. I hadn't thought about like warming it back up. I just
Hmm.
thought about letting it thaw out. But that's a really great idea because boy, it would be just delicious.
Yeah, it was so good like that. It was, probably one of the hardest things as a kid was waiting for those things to heat up in the toaster oven.
The
We'd have
longest 10 minutes.
like I said, we had like 25 people there, and you could only fit like maybe 4 or 5 of them in the toaster oven at a time. So we're just like, I got to get to the next batch, like run over there as soon as the timer goes off. So yeah,
Well, how
they,
sweet is that? How sweet is that? And do you make them and freeze them yourself, or do you? I mean, how often do you kind of make them yourself?
well, so around almost 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with celiac, so I can't
Oh,
eat them anymore. And I've been trying to create a gluten free version, and I haven't had success at making them. I mean, I've eaten 1,000 of these rolls. I probably will never be happy with my
right.
gluten free version. It's never going to live up to my memory of it, but I haven't quite got the recipe down yet. But I will definitely share it on my website when I do. I look forward to being able to eat them again. My family, they still eat them at Christmas time and stuff like that. So,
That's really wonderful. Yeah.
yeah,
The thing I think often the memory of food is sometimes more difficult than actually recreating the flavor, right? Like I always
right.
say that I'm not good at making pies because my grandmother made great pies, right? I just have very fond memories. I have fond memories of picking blackberries, and then her making a pie and it just being the best thing in the world. And to this day, I have never made a pie, I don't think, that has stood up to what she made. But no one else feels that they're not good, right?
Right.
So I do think it's the memory that's really hard. And so I can understand that. And there is obviously a difference, a huge difference, especially in something that's yeasted
Hmm.
between gluten free and gluten. I've made plenty of things gluten free with like the gluten free blends, right? Like the
Right.
Bob's or King Arthur blends, like cookies and cakes, and they all turn out fine. But I have yet to have something that's yeasted turn out in a way that I've been really happy with. So I'll be
Yeah.
interested to see if you can.
It's a challenge for sure. I mean, I've made gluten free cinnamon rolls that I'm pretty happy with that I feed to gluten eating people and they think that they're good. But this one's tricky. You can't really let gluten free dough do the three rises.
Sure.
and it doesn't have a lot of stretch to it because there's no gluten. So it's really hard to do the rolling part to make the shape and have it turn out right. So there's some challenges, but I'll figure it out eventually. I mean, it's in my blood. I'm sure I can do it.
Yeah. See, and it's good to have that sort of stubborn thing, like, I will figure this out no matter what. And I think all cooks need to have that. I think it needs to be
Yeah.
two things. It needs to be how bad can it be? How hard can it be? I'll just
Right.
try. Like, I think you need to have that. But I also think you need to have if I fail, I'm just going to keep getting it. I'm going to keep trying until I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
sometimes I don't think people necessarily understand, like food bloggers, for example, how many times we make something before we get it right. I made, maybe around a year ago, I was trying to make garlic knots that were gluten free, and I made them 12 times in 1 week. And, I love garlic knots, but by the end, I was like, I never want to see another garlic knot again. Like, because I was eating some of every batch, and I was just like, no, no more garlic knots for me. But I finally
right.
got it. By the 12th batch, they were great, but I was like, I can't eat anymore. I don't ever want to make them again. You'll get it eventually, though.
Right. And the other thing about, and when you said that, it made me think about yeast dough in particular, is that the weather does have a lot to do with yeast dough. Because a lot of
Hmm.
times when you're making bread, it'll be like 5 to 6 cups of flour or whatever the recipe says. And the reason it says that is because it may I live in a very dry climate, so I don't usually
Right.
need a lot of extra flour. But if you live somewhere where it's really humid, you might need a little more flour in the dough. And so you really have to practice.
Yeah,
You really
for
have to
sure.
practice.
And it could change from summer to winter if you're making it because
Right.
it might be drier or wetter, or if you're doing it on a rainy day or whatever. Yeah. I live in a very
They're
humid area. Well, I grew up in Georgia. That's where my grandma lived, but I live in North Carolina now, and it's not as humid as Georgia, but it's close. So I definitely understand that, how that can play a factor when you're
Sure.
baking.
And like you
Yeah.
said, winter and summer, because temperature matters for how something rises. So, there's a lot of differences. So you have to just be confident in what you're trying to do and just allow things to, roll with the punches, I guess,
Yeah, for
with
sure.
yeast dough. But this recipe I thought was very easy. I didn't think it was too finicky or fussy at all. It was just super yummy. And when you're kneading it, it just has the best feel to it. It's
Yeah.
just this beautiful kind of dough that if anyone who's listening, if you've kneaded dough, you just know what I mean. It just has a gorgeous elasticity to it which is what makes it taste so good too.
Right.
So for those of us who are eating gluten, it's great. Do you have
You're
anything
making
else
me
that you'd
really
love
want
to?
a butter roll right now, Kathy.
So I am too, and they're all. It's been a couple of weeks since I tested the recipe, and they're all gone. Again, I only made half a batch. But now I'm like, I should maybe make some more. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the recipe?
So no one in my family really knows where this recipe came from. I've done a lot of research into my family tree and things like that. And so my great grandfather, the one who made the recipe, his father came from the Czech Republic, and
Oh,
there's a baked roll, a sweet roll that is traditional Czech thing that's served at Easter called I'm sure I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but it's called Jidashe, and it's spelled Jidase. And it's a very, very similar, like the dough, the ingredients are all very similar. The dough, the rising, everything is the same, the shaping. The difference being that it is topped with like a honey glaze after it's baked instead of the icing. But I think that, this is just speculation, of course, but I think that it could have been an inspiration for him. Like it might have been something that his family served to him when he was younger, or a recipe that might have been passed down to him that he wanted to turn into something for the bakery. So, but like I said, no one in my family knows. He died when I was only like 2 years old. So I
mm.
never got to talk to him, but everything I know about the bakery has been passed down from my grandma or my aunts and uncles or my dad's.
Wow, that's really sweet. How sweet, and I love that. I'm gonna look up the historic recipe that you're talking about there because I'm
Yeah,
just kind of curious. And I just wonder, a honey glaze would be sticky and probably not as easy for a bakery to sell. People wouldn't
right.
walk around with it either. So yeah.
Yeah, and he might have wanted to make
So
it his
good.
own. I mean, I get inspired by things all the time. Like I'll see a cookie and I'll think like, oh, that looks good, but what if I did this instead? And, maybe he was the same way. Maybe that's something that we have in common.
Sure.
So, yeah,
And also, when you're selling things, sometimes you have to do things that the people like, whether or not it would be your first choice, right? So if your customers,
right,
it might be something he just knew his customers would like. Which, I mean, who doesn't love like frosting anything?
right.
Who doesn't love frosted anything? I love frosted everything. That's really great. Great.
I'll
Great.
give
Well,
you another
Tiffany,
tip about. Oh, I was going to give you another tip about the frosting. My
yeah, please do.
dad likes to cut the rolls in half. So it's like two halves, like two pieces of bread, and put the frosting in the middle like a sandwich. So it's not so messy when you eat it. So maybe you want to try that on your next batch.
That is really a good idea. Now, see, I'm like, oh, you could make really small ones and do them whoopie pie style.
Right?
Or
Exactly.
sandwich cookie style, because whoopie pies are usually really soft. They're not usually yeasted, but they're soft, and so that is a really good tip. See, I love this. Okay, all the sweets. Give me all the sweets all the
Right?
time. That's wonderful. Any other really good tips we should have?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just, if you try the recipe, I know you tried it already, Kathy, but if the people who are
Yes,
listening try the recipe, just like make it your own. Like I said, we like to put different toppings and we like to use the toppings on other things. Like just, I think that if my great grandfather was still alive, he would love that people are still enjoying these rolls today. So, I mean, it's been almost 100 years since he opened his bakery, and like we're still talking about these rolls. So, I think that would really tickle him. So,
that's awesome. I think so too. I mean, because people who bake love to share their recipes, so I
mhm.
think that's a really great thing. Wonderful. Well, tell everybody where they can find you online, please.
My website is wellfedbaker.com and it's all gluten-free recipes. I mean, I have stuff that everyone will like because I'm the only gluten-free person. So I feed all gluten eaters, but I have everything from regular dinners, quick dinners, Sunday dinners, and baked goods. You can find anything there.
That is really great. And social media too,
Same, Well-Fed Baker on
Instagram and all that.
Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, we will thank everyone so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for being here, Tiffany. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Kathy. It was great to talk to you.